I don't think it's a thing.
Do you know what is a thing? Is episode whatever this is of Unqualified Gamers now back on YouTube, which is very exciting.
Yeah, how long has it been? I think it's been like 6 years since.
Yeah, 6 to 12 to 16. Who knows?
When was YouTube invented?
Way about a year before our podcast came out, at the best list.
Yeah, we were doing it before then, even.
So yeah, there's that. I am Cody Goff, and this is Jonathan Martin. This is Unqualified Gamers, and you're probably listening on WGNplus.com or on UnqualifiedGamers.com or on GonnaGeek.com or on somewhere else that I don't even know where we're being syndicated. But now, in addition to those things, you can / may also be listening to us / kind of watching us on YouTube. Only my camera's broken, so.
Yeah, so here's the funny thing. So if you listen to our episode, maybe like, I don't know, what was it, like 6 episodes ago, Cody talked about a computer issue that he had, like a significant, severe one, a crypto locker virus. And this podcast has had a long history of technical difficulties ever since about episode 100. Before then, everything was very smooth sailing. But since about episode 100, we've had a long history of technical difficulties. And once Cody hit that episode around the time that he got the crypto locker virus on his computer, I think that you have literally not had a single thing go correctly the first time with anything you've tried to do with your current computer. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's pretty much it, actually.
Yeah. So now Cody's camera is broke, and he's going to need to get a new one of those. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So whatever, that's fine. I'm gonna buy a new webcam. I had the Microsoft Life Cam, and it is completely broken. I don't even. I mean, there's nothing to be done about it, which is fine. So I'm going to purchase a Logitech camera. One of our amazing listeners, one of the best listeners ever, Ryan Dombrowski, at one point offered to actually buy me a webcam. I think because he felt so sorry for how terrible I am at computers, and I declined because I'm an idiot. I wish that I had not done that, but here we are. And I'm just going to buy a little Logitech deal. So that's fine. I'm not worried about it. We're going to talk about video games in this episode. Jonathan has lots to say about video games. And then he has some epic story to tell, some tale of houses and something that happened that I don't really... I'm not really going to listen to it, but you can. Feel free to do so. And he's also... What are you talking? You're talking Super Meat Boy, Broken Hurricane, and... Broken Age, and Until Dawn, maybe.
So yeah, like I went on like a bender over the past couple of weeks. After all of the house stuff settled down, like, you know, I'm kind of in a holding pattern until, so we're going to be ended up moving most likely in December into the new house, and we're moving out of our current house on October 29th. And everything's packed for the most part. We've got about 15% of our stuff left to pack. And so like there's nothing in my house. So I don't have anything to do. I of course left my video games and stuff hooked up because I need something to do at night. And so like that's it. That's like all that's left. So that's all I have to do.
Other than text me sweet nothings, obviously.
Yeah, but I would have done that kind of no matter what.
Oh, irregardlessly, I would have done that. Yes, excellent. Well, good. I'm glad that that's always pretty much the last thing that I always pack as well when I'm moving somewhere. Believe me, I'm no stranger to moving, as I do it pretty much every 1 to 2 years. 1 to 2. I don't think I've lasted more than 2 years in an apartment in this city. No,
yeah, I'm really looking forward to this next move because it's going to be the last one, at least planned, the last planned one for possibly ever. And I'm excited to never move again.
Damn, son. Well, we'll get into the house later, but I want to hear you talk about video games because I have played literally nothing. All I have done has been trying to fix computer issues.
Yeah, so Cody got his computer back, and so it had everything wiped, and so he had to like reinstall everything. And apparently, he installed Windows 10, and that broke stuff. That broke everything on your
No,
computer.
this wasn't even the thing. This was a different computer altogether. So Logan, our friend who very kindly fixed my hard drive after the whole crypto locker incident, he was like, you should try Windows 10, check it out, blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, cool. I have two computers. I've got the computer in my room, which has like my whole life, all my files, my podcast, everything, and then I've got my brand new gaming PC, which is only for games. And I'm just going to install some Steam games on there. It's basically a video game system. I don't have docs on there. I don't have Microsoft Word. I'm not editing on there. I don't have saved stuff. Like, that's the one where if I have to wipe the hard drive, I can re-download everything in like a second. So I'm like, that's the one I should try Windows 10 on. Because, if everything is on my Windows 7 PC in my bedroom, like I don't want to go to Windows 10, have it screw everything up, right?
Sure.
So I tried it and it failed miserably. It just like I booted up Metal Gear Solid 5, booted up. I opened Metal Gear Solid 5, which I've not been able to play because of that. And it's like running super choppy. And then I tried updating drivers and NVIDIA wasn't letting me in. It was a nightmare. And I hated everything. I just hated everything about it. You have it though, and you like it?
I have it on my laptop. And then on my regular PC, I've got Windows 7 still because I like Windows 7. So my laptop had Windows 8 on it, which I detested.
Right.
So any chance I could get rid of Windows 8, I was like on board. So I was super excited when I could get Windows 10 for free. And I still think I like 7 better, but I haven't really tooled around with 10 all that much. But 10 is head and shoulders above Windows 8. Like, it's not even close.
Well, yeah, but that's I understand. That's not much of a an
accomplishment.
Yeah, right.
I guess Windows 8 was terrible, so I'm excited to have something different on the computer.
Well,
I'm glad that broke for you too, though.
Yeah, because why wouldn't it? It's just kind of the flavor of the day for me. It's fine. It's whatever. It's very first world problems. I'm not super worried about it. And I'm gonna upgrade. So then I go into our Facebook group, a private group that we've got with our friends, and I'm complaining about it. And everyone unanimously, like half of our friends apparently are software developers all of a sudden. And they're all just like, trust me, you want to have the latest Windows, blah, blah, blah. It's really great. It's drivers, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to try it one more time, keeping in mind that Logan has volunteered himself to be my dedicated tech support. So that's his fault. He was like, oh, should have called me. I'm like, all right, man, you want me to call you when I have problems with my computer? That's fine. I'll do it. But
holy crap. You are going to be like my grandmother when it comes to computers. You're going to call Logan and be like, Logan, my screen went black. He's going to be like, did you? Okay, Cody, I need you to hit the power button. The light just turned green. All right, the screen's on. Thanks, Logan. I'll call you if I have any more problems. That's what's going to happen.
Is that what's going to happen specifically?
I really hope so.
All right, great. Can't wait. Well, whatever. I'm going to upgrade to Windows 10 and try it again after I have beaten Metal Gear Solid 5, because I'm done. I'm done with this 2 weeks of not playing games because I'm busy updating drivers and making sure all my hardware works and installing hard drives and everything. I'm done with it. I'm just totally over it.
Especially when your hardware still doesn't work.
Just the webcam. Yeah, there was a Logitech one I wanted to get anyway, so I'll just buy that excitedly. I think this is still under warranty, the LifeCam, so I'm gonna try to send it to Microsoft and be like, give me my money. But I don't know what'll happen with that.
Sweet.
That? Yeah, I mean, part of the other reason I haven't been gaming is because I was traveling, but we're gonna save our little lifestyle portion of this podcast until the end and actually start by talking about video games. The other thing about Windows 10, though, real quick, related to games, is I heard it has some issues with some Steam games, which I clearly was affected by when Metal Gear Solid 5 wasn't working properly. Do you game on your Windows 10 device at all, or no?
Not at all. I have I have streamed Diablo 3 from my downstairs PC to that laptop with like Steam Play, that thing where you can stream from one computer to another. Yeah, but that's it. I have not actually used it because that computer. So that computer is literally a $200 laptop. Did you know you could buy laptops for $200? It's $200 laptop. It basically runs Windows. I don't know. I don't think it can do anything else. It was a. It's supposed to be like a web surfing, email checking type computer that I can bring anywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, it doesn't really do anything.
I understand. Well, what can you do about the games and the Windows 10? But call Logan. That should be our new podcast name. Is Call Logan.
So I actually, like you said, I played a ton of video games. Like I said, I played a ton of video games.
Yes.
So I would like to talk about them.
Fine. Continue.
So PlayStation Plus continues to be, in my opinion, awesome. Like so apparently there's like a big, and maybe this was because I was not one, like I didn't have PlayStation Plus during the PlayStation 3 era when you didn't need it, but now you need it if you ever want to play online. So, I think pretty much everybody has it that has a PlayStation 4 now. But there's a lot of like complaints from people apparently about the offerings that are free when you subscribe to PlayStation Plus. There's a lot of indie stuff that gets put out every month now, and apparently people were used to getting like AAA titles put out. So to me, just like getting free games of any kind are great, and not to mention I really like a lot of indie games, so I have no problem with this. But I guess like it's different from what it used to be. I still think it's great. So I still consider PlayStation Plus to be an awesome investment. It ended up costing me like $40 or $35 getting it on sale. And it's a year's worth of subscription. And they give you like 2 to 3 games free a month. So this month, Super Meat Boy got released for the PlayStation 4. And anybody that was a PlayStation Plus member got it. Also, Broken Age, which was Double Fine's Kickstarter that finally got released, I want to say like 7 or 8 months ago.
Yeah.
That was one of the free games. Both parts of it, because it got released in halves. And then some other game that I haven't even tried yet that I don't remember the name of, but was not on my radar really at all as the game I've ever even heard of, which occasionally shows up in these PlayStation Plus offerings. So I've played Super Meat Boy before. I played it on my PC and I played it with an Xbox 360 controller. And, the D-pad on the Xbox 360 controller is horrendous. I mean, it is the worst. And I liked Super Meat Boy, but it was very frustrating to play that game with that D-pad. And I don't feel like it controls super well because the amount of precision that's needed in this game is like, it's insane. I mean, it's the whole point of the game.
Yeah.
And you can't really get that kind of precision with a joystick, I feel like. And so you really need a D-pad. And just the D-pad on the 360 controller was horrible. So I know some people have completed it no problem on a 360 controller. I just had a lot of problems playing it on a 360 controller. So I was kind of excited because it's like, all right, now I can play this game with a PlayStation 4 controller. It can probably my favorite controller, I think, of all the controllers.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah. So I downloaded it and I started playing it. And when I first played it a couple of years ago on the PC, I think I got to like the second world, and I got about 3/4 of the way through the second world, and I was like, I'm just done with this. Like, I know this game is going to ramp up crazy hard in difficulty, and I'm already getting frustrated with some of the things. Like, I was dying, and from everything I heard about the game, when you die in that game, you're supposed to feel like it's not your fault, or like it is your fault, like you just screwed something up and did it wrong. I was feeling like it wasn't my fault. I was feeling like it was the controller's fault. So now I've got it on the PlayStation 4. I'm playing it with a PlayStation 4 controller, and I like whizzed through the first 2 worlds of the game, kind of no problem. I had a couple of issues on a couple of levels, but I noticed that like I'm super enjoying the game, being able to play it with the PlayStation D-pad. Like super enjoying it. It's a really good game.
Well, yeah, it's an amazing game. Yeah, but I totally agree. With an Xbox 360 controller, it's like, what are you doing, you know?
Exactly. So like now that I have, I think what feels like the proper equipment with which to enjoy this game, I'm like really enjoying it. And it's the kind of game where I can like, we talk about this kind of game all the time. I can sit down and I can play it for like 10 to 15 minutes and beat a level if it's a particularly difficult level, and then like be done with it and then return to it later. Right? It's like it's great for that. It's super fun. So it's a puzzle platformer. If you're a member of PlayStation Plus, you can get it for free right now for the August releases if you have a PlayStation 4. And I just think I liked it before. I didn't like. I understood why it was good, but I didn't super enjoy it. I'm really, really enjoying it. It's really good. It's a very good game.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. I actually had a friend come over and play it when I had some company one time and at my place, and it was like a communal activity, just watching us die over and over again, basically.
Did you also did you like pass the controller back and forth and stuff, or was this just like?
Yeah, between levels, because the thing is, like, if you're passing it between deaths, then you're passing it every like 5 seconds.
Yeah, you really are.
Yeah, I feel like part of the way that you need to play the game is to play it over and over and over again, like really, really quickly. Because it's like you practicing and it's about getting repetition and
listener, this is like so Super Meat Boy is a pixelated, like it's a super ultra pixelated platforming game that's like ultra difficult, like an incredibly difficult platforming game. Think on the lines of like Gianna Sisters or Cloudberry Kingdom or what? Wasn't there another one? There was like one more. I can't remember. Cloudberry Kingdom's a good example anyway. And then it requires incredible precision, and when you die, you respawn like it's literally instant. Like as soon as you die, you are playing the game again, and so you just continue to play it until you complete the level. Is kind of the way it is set up.
Yeah, or like I want to be the Bashi for the. All right, listen. If you know what I want to be the Bashi is, and you don't know
what Super Meat Boy is, yeah.
That was a dumb analogy, but yeah. Those games are getting more popular. It's like a thing now. I got one that has a thumping EDM soundtrack throughout the entire game called something. I don't remember what it's called, but it's the same exact kind of thing. You die and you respawn, and then you just play it over and over again because you're constantly dying.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, I'm like super fond of this game, and I'm super glad it was free. Like that's really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. Our friend Blake has played that game a ridiculous amount, and of course, knowing him, he's like 100% at everything, which is ridiculous to me because it's such a hard game.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be getting the platinum trophy in this game. I just because of how difficult I know the game is, and I'm sure we'll get, but I definitely am going to sit down with this game repeatedly. I mean, like even typically before I play any other game, I sit down and play like 1 or 2 levels of it. I've been finding myself doing.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's cool. The Meteor game that they gave free with PlayStation Plus this month is Broken Age. So Broken Age is a Double Fine game who are very well known for adventure games. Listener, I'm going to assume you know what an adventure game is, something like The Secret of Monkey Island or Maniac Mansion or Day of the Tentacle, games like that. I'm just going to assume you know what that is. So because they've been around forever. So this is an adventure game, much in the style of those old adventure games, which I will be perfectly honest, I basically didn't play when I was a kid. I didn't have a PC growing up, and that was where those games lived. And I know they were super well regarded at the time. I just never got a chance to play them because I didn't have a PC that was capable of playing them. So I've played like the occasional one over the years that's come up, whether it be on like the iPad, which is a great device for adventure games just because of their structure, as well as like the random PC game I got on like a Steam sale. I played like the occasional one, but this one is sticking with me in a game that an adventure games like haven't in the past really. So it is an adventure game told in 2 parts. You play one of 2 characters that you can change between at any time. And it starts off again. You can pick either one of these characters, and one of them, the boy character, who's voiced by Elijah Wood, um, is on like a spaceship, like this basically a spaceship traveling through space. He's the only person on this spaceship, and it's not a typical spaceship. It's not like a lot of technical devices, and like planets and stars and stuff. Like you can tell immediately from like the way he interacts with the stuff that's on this ship that something's really weird about it. He's got like these two computer programs. One is an orange ball and one is a blue ball that are his mom and dad. He calls them mom and dad, but regards them as computers. And he like his mom sets up these missions for him to go on within the ship, like for instance, and Double Fine's known for their humor in their games, but for instance, his mom sets up a mission for him to rescue these small hexagonal robots from Ice Cream Mountain. And he's like a 14-year-old or something like that. So he's got like the teenage angsty attitude. And he goes into this room and these two hexagonal robots are like, they say, "Oh no, like there's been an ice cream avalanche." And he's just like, okay, whatever. Because he's done this exact same mission like 1,000 times. And he goes up to them with a spoon that you find that can talk to you, whose whole job it is to be the best spoon that a spoon could ever be. And he just starts eating the ice cream that is trapping these. And we're talking like a giant, literally like a mountain of ice cream. And he just starts eating this ice cream with this small spoon that's talking to him. And it fades to black. And like, that's it. Like, that's the mission that he went on. So there's something weird. There's something really weird about this like spaceship that he's on. Like the mom computer makes playmates for him out of yarn. I don't know. It's really wacky, and the voice acting is wonderful, and it's super funny.
So wait, this sounds like Ni no Kuni. Is it like kiddish? Is it like a rated G kind of humor?
I would say like PG. I'd say it's rated. It's a rated PG kind of humor. It's written so like adventure games, just by design, when they are good, are written incredibly smartly to like appeal to a broad range of senses of humor. And this is a game, and we've talked about voice acting before and why it matters or doesn't matter. This is a game where the voice acting really matters a lot, and definitely affects the quality of this game and the amount of enjoyment that I'm getting out of this game. Because Elijah Wood voices the main character, the boy. He voices Shay, and what the voice direction is fantastic for him, because he's a well-known voice, but that doesn't make him a good voice actor. But the direction for him is wonderful. So he's very well done. Jack Black is in this game. He's also great. Like,
that is always a win.
I know. So it's got some great like celebrity cameo type stuff in it too. Jennifer Hale's in it. So yeah, that's like his story. And again, it's like set in space. It's a weird spaceship. The girl's story is set in this kind of like fantastical fairyland type, like long, long ago Shrek style. Or far, far away. I'm sorry, Shrek style, with just like also kind of a very non-traditional fairy tale style. So her story, Shay, you don't find out Shay's story till later. Basically, what happens is he gets approached by a wolf that stows away on the ship and convinces him to go on real missions. He basically, the computer's job is to keep Shay safe on the spaceship. And this wolf convinces Shay to basically like hack the controls and send him to dangerous places because people in the universe need to be rescued. So like that's what happens to Shay. The girl whose name is Vela, she again lives in this fairyland, this fairy tale world, and there's a monster called Mog Chothra, which sounds very Mog Chothra, which to me, I don't know, is that resonate with you in a way that it doesn't with me? Because to me it just sounds H.P. Lovecraft.
No, it's the second cousin of Bunuvelza.
Oh, see, I knew I should have played Final Fantasy 13-3.
See, there you go. There you go.
I'm missing out. Yeah, I'm missing out. Anyway, it's a very like Call of Cthulhu-esque monster. It's like this big, it basically is like a big beholder, big giant like floating eyeball with 5 tentacles coming out of the bottom of it. It's enormous. And there are multiple villages in Vela's world, and they all hold something called a Maiden's Feast, where they dress up. They pick like 4 women from the village, and they dress them up in these ridiculous outfits that are themed with the theme of the village. So like one village is the village that Vela comes from is called Sweet Bunting. And so all of the girls are dressed in like giant cakes. There's another village that is like a fishing town, and all the girls like smell like fish, like really gross. And then there's like a village in the clouds, and all the girls have dresses that are like birds, and they're made with like feathers and stuff. So it's kind of, again, really weird. And Mog Chothra comes, and you are supposed to basically be eaten by him if you are one of these offerings to him. And if you are eaten by him, it is like a great honor. It's considered a great honor for that to happen. So Vela is chosen to be in the Maiden's Feast, and it is her time to be eaten by Mog Chothra, and she is like the first girl ever to fight back. And she fights back against Mog Chothra. And her story is, I want to kill Mog Chothra. And it's literally her going around, and it's a great storyline because everybody you talk to during the first half of the game when you're playing as Vela, there's always a story option. It can be the first thing you say to a random stranger is like, hey, can you help me kill Mog Chothra? Like it's every time it's funny. Mog Chothra is like a well-known like god in this world. And so most of the time, like the response is like, why would you want to do that? It's awesome to get eaten by Mog Chothra. It's great. It's really funny. It's again, it's very well done. And that's her story. And it's got the standard adventure game tropes of you get items, you combine items together, you use those items then on puzzles to solve the puzzles, and like that progresses you further in the game. It's very, very standard adventure game stuff. Again, the story is really what set it apart for me, because halfway into the game, I understand how this game was divided into 2 chapters, because there's a very clear point which the first chapter ends, and it is one of the best like stopping point cliffhanger things that I think has ever been in video games.
Whoa!
It's
hyperbole alert.
It's phenomenal, at least that I have ever played. It's absolutely phenomenal. And it just goes, it's because the storytelling is so good in this game. But it's really great. It's really great. A thing this game does that's smart in like the pantheon of adventure games is that I think it really pushes the genre forward. One of my big problems with adventure games in the past when I've played them is solutions feel very obtuse a lot of the time, and you don't want to look up solutions in adventure games because that's the whole gameplay of the adventure game. So like, unless you're I mean, unless you're literally just going to it through the story, which honestly you should just watch a Let's Play if you don't want to like play the game and try to figure out the puzzles. You really aren't going to be looking up solutions when you're playing these games. And one of my big problems with adventure games in the past is like the solutions can be incredibly obtuse. Like use the hamster on the ceiling fan. Like that doesn't make sense as a solution to a problem in any way. And a lot of times also there can be very large inventories of items. And so the possibilities of what you can do can be a little overwhelming. At least that has been my experience with adventure games in the past. This game keeps the inventory limited to, I think, the most I've ever had, and I'm almost done with the game. And I think the most I've ever had in my inventory at one time is like 7 items, which is far less than in previous adventure games that I've played.
That is appealing to me.
Yeah, so that has been really nice so far. There have been a couple of things. It makes it easy to try every item on every object. If you get to a part where you're stuck, just kind of brute force it. I have had to do that like once or twice when something didn't seem like apparent. And so like I will say it hasn't been completely smooth sailing, but for the most part, it has been much more accessible to me than any other adventure game I can remember playing.
So even more accessible than The Legend of Zelda.
So that's a different type of adventure game than the type of adventure game we're talking about. So that's like an action game, right? That's adventure action. There's no action in this game. This is a game very, very akin to, like I said, like Full Throttle, the Monkey Island games. Do you know those adventure games, Maniac Mansion and Day of the Tentacle, the old LucasArts games as well, King's Quest.
Yeah, I've never played any of the games you're talking about.
Okay, so like they again, probably because you maybe didn't have a PC that played a lot of video games on either when you were a kid. But they're games where there's no action. Like it's not like you're never going to have to react to anything. There's never like there's not any kind of Twitch gameplay at all, or skill-based gameplay. It's you have an inventory of items, you use them on puzzles to solve the puzzles, and there are typically a lot of NPCs that you talk to with a lot of branching trees of conversation and dialogue that you can have.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so there's no action at all, and I'm to be honest, I'm not surprised that you've like literally never played an adventure game, because I would say up to like 3 years ago, I don't think I had either.
So why is that?
Again, because the adventure games were the biggest when they were on PC, when you and I basically only had Nintendos and Super Nintendos. We didn't have computers that played video games. And so we weren't exposed to those adventure games as they were released. And we kind of, we missed it. We missed when they were a very popular genre. And they've recently been coming back with games like The Walking Dead, which is like that Telltale series. Tales from the Borderlands is an adventure game. Those games are adventure games as well. It's just you and I didn't grow up with them at all, and that's why we didn't play them.
Yeah, makes sense. Would you say that we missed them? Like, do you think that this is a thing that we missed? Like, was it a detriment to our lives that we did not play adventure games?
I've played a couple in the past couple of years, like I said. I've enjoyed them, but haven't been obsessed with them. This one makes me feel like some of those more classic ones that are so highly revered. Like, I've never played Day of the Tentacle. I hear it is one of the best adventure games ever made. I hear it's hilarious and awesome. This makes me want to go back and experience some of those amazing adventure games. Grim Fandango is another one that just got released on the PS4 up-resed. That's supposed to be incredible, that I've never played.
Grim Fandango is supposedly one of the best games like ever. Just like a kind of underground, but not really, you know?
Yeah, and that was another game that I didn't have a computer that could play it when we were a kid, and so I never got a chance to play it. But this game makes me want to go back and play those games because it's really great. It is. These games are like story distilled into. They're legitimately just story because there's not any real gameplay. It's using items on various things in your environment. There's no like other gameplay involved, and then listening to people talk.
Huh.
So like if you're interested in just a good story, this is the type of game that you should try if you've never tried an adventure game before. And like I said, this particular one, Broken Age, is incredibly accessible. It just feels like a very modern take on the adventure game, which is awesome.
It sounds like this genre also lends itself really well to Let's Plays because you're not missing any real quote unquote gameplay, as you mentioned. Like if I want to experience Broken Age, and I don't have a PS4, I may decide to watch it.
Absolutely. I will say that like I said, you can watch a Let's Play if you don't like want to play the game at all. Like, and you were going to look up a bunch of spoilers. You should just watch a Let's Play of the game. Yeah. Because like the fun part is like some of the fun part is like the weird discovery of what items end up solving problems, or looking at a problem and being like, I need to get up to this platform. And like, I have this thing and like, I have this thing. And I know that this thing in the environment reacts this way when I use this item on it. Like, what's the combination of items I need to use on this screen to get up to that platform? And figuring that out can be pretty rewarding as well.
Nice. Cool. Well, I may check it out.
Yeah, it's really good. And even if you don't play it, which I wouldn't fault you if you didn't, because these games are way not for everybody. They are not going to be able to hold the attention of a lot of people, I think. Then watch a Let's Play, because I think you can get I really think you could get just as much out of it, little less out of it than playing it.
Sure. Cool.
So that's been really good. I'm totally going to complete that. Like, no question in my mind. I think it's probably about a 6 to 8 hour game total. And the art style is great, and just the story is great, the music's great, and the voice acting is tremendous. So yeah, check out Broken Age, especially if you've got PlayStation Plus, because right now it's free.
That is awesome that it's only that short as well. I love games that are not long.
So I would think that adventure games couldn't really be much longer than that, because I think that the gameplay might get a little stale after a while.
Would you call Gone Home an adventure game?
So it's like teetering on that. It's like teetering on the threshold of being an adventure game, but there aren't any real puzzles in Gone Home. You don't get a number of items and have to figure out how to use them to like unlock more of the mansion that you find yourself in, or I guess it's a house, of the house you find yourself in. You mostly just walk through the house, look around the environment, discover the story that you want to discover, and then listen to those journal entries that autoplay to give you like the story that the developers want you to see.
Aha, that was a trick question. Do you know what kind of game Gone Home is?
I think lately they've been being labeled as walking simulators.
Ah, damn it. Yeah, you stole my revelation. Yes, a walking game.
Yeah, and there's multiples of those that have been pretty well regarded. Dear Esther is another one of those. The guy that made the Stanley Parable just came out with one. It's his second game. So they're becoming more popular, certainly as a genre. Adventure games have more interaction from the player because you've got to figure out puzzles, basically, is the difference.
Gotcha. But you wouldn't call Myst an adventure game. You'd call Myst a puzzle game, right?
I don't know. I think you're kind of getting into semantics at this point. Most people would call Myst an adventure game, even though it's got more puzzles than most adventure games.
Look, if I can't easily categorize something, Jonathan, then I mean, come on.
That's a good point. The what, how, what, come on is you have
right.
convinced me. You've convinced me. Yeah.
I have.
So, Broken Age is great, and that's not even the best game that I played.
What?
Yeah.
There's more?
I know. So, do we need a word from our sponsors quick before I continue to talk?
If only we had one. Back to you, John.
So this would be a great place for sponsors. I think originally we wanted Welch's to sponsor us because we one time brought up jelly. Anyway.
Wow, that was a reference from like 2 years ago. How do you even remember that?
I don't know. Because I pay attention to this podcast, obviously. At least one of us has to.
Yeah, that's never happened. Okay, sure. Go for it.
Okay. So the best game that I played is a game called
Life.
Is it no this for this podcast is a game called Until Dawn. Have you heard of this game?
No.
Okay. You know, and maybe the listener doesn't know, especially if you're relatively new to the podcast, but you definitely know that Halloween is my favorite holiday. Like it is my favorite holiday. I love all like the crazy lore that surrounds it. I love all the different takes on it. I love I love scary movies. I've gotten to watch like 5 or 6 of them already this year. I just love everything about it. So when October rolls around, I always make it a point to watch kind of as many scary movies as I can and play through like at least one, we'll call it scary game. Now, traditionally, I haven't been terribly scared by games. In any horror games, really, I find horror movies much more effective in terms of scaring me. But in general, I like to play a game that at least is like in theme with scary stuff and Halloween, right?
Yeah, no, you're well documented on this podcast of enjoying exactly what you just said. You like horror movies and games and things.
So a couple of months ago, a game called Until Dawn came out, and I've been following it for a little while. And when the reviews started coming out and they started coming out like incredibly positive for this game, I was like, okay, like I have to get it. I have to play through this game. I've got a couple of friends up here that are just as into Halloween as I am. So it's a great time of year for us. Like we always go to like the theaters and stuff too. But one of my buddies, Ryan, is really into playing scary games as well. And we've played through like Resident Evil 5 in the past. So he's on board with like playing scary games as well. So I was like, hey, do you want to come over one night? Because this game, from what I could understand, was like 6 to 8 hours. I was like, do you want to come over one night and we will just try to play through this entire game? And he was like, sure, let's do it.
Whoa, marathon.
Yeah, and this is what I knew about the game. I knew that it was a very tropey kind of choose your own adventure game. Again, another adventure game, but with a little bit more like gameplay in there, like quick time event gameplay stuff. So do you remember when I talked about Heavy Rain?
Yeah.
Do you remember what Heavy Rain was?
It was a noir.
Right, but basically like it was just a bunch of quick time events.
Yeah, a bunch of quick time events, yeah.
So this is that, only it is a horror movie of that. So it's that set in a horror genre game.
Is this a new genre? Quick time? Is that like a genre now? And can we even call it that, or will Apple sue us?
I think it continues. I think I wouldn't. I think we should stay away from that. I think you could put this in the same category as adventure games. I think this could still be considered an adventure game as well.
Oh.
Yeah. So the great part about these games, though, like this game and Heavy Rain specifically, are that the game, if you screw something up, the game doesn't stop or prevent you from moving forward. The story just always progresses forward, regardless of your actions. You can change the path of the story, just like in Heavy Rain, with your decisions. People will die, most likely, in this game from your decisions. and you can just continue to play the game. And that was exactly how it was in Heavy Rain as well. And it was awesome. It had some major flaws, Heavy Rain did. So does Until Dawn. But the idea is still so unique, and it hasn't been done enough yet to where it's still super cool when it's done. So this is a horror. It's a horror game. The setting is you are a group of high school students. You don't play just one. It's divided into chapters, and you take control of many different high schoolers throughout the course of the game. Just like a cheesy, campy horror flick, you all look far too old to be teenagers. which is very much exactly what it's like in like old 80s horror movies, because obviously they had 20 somethings playing teenagers at the time. So you all look far too old to be teenagers. But at the very start of the game, and I won't get super into spoiler territory because the game is just super cool. I'll just set up like the first maybe 30-ish, 20 to 30 minutes of the game. The game starts off as you're in like this cabin in the woods, and it's like you and 7 other people. It's like eight teenagers at this cabin, and there's this one super douchey jock dude that the nerdy girl has a crush on, and everybody decides they're going to play a prank on her. And so they play the prank of they're going to hide in this room, and the douchey guy Josh is going to tell her that he likes her, and they're going to have sex in this room upstairs, and everybody's going to watch. They're not going to have sex, but he's going to embarrass her basically. So she walks in, and of course everybody embarrasses her, and she's so embarrassed that she runs out into the woods in the middle of the night and dies.
That's awesome.
And the next year, her brother, who was also there, who was drunk at the time, invites everybody back up to the cabin for kind of like a cathartic cabin experience. Only it turns out that there's a killer in the woods, because of course there is.
Of course there is.
And that's basically the setup of the story. And so it's you trying to figure out like what is going on. Like, who is the killer in the woods? Trying to keep people alive if you want to. Like, I immediately knew, like, when I was playing and Josh was introduced, and like I was like, I want Josh to die. Like, I want to find a way to get him to die in this game, because he was such a jerk, right? And like he comes back to the cabin with like his new girlfriend, and just like campy horror movies, all they talk about is having sex with each other. In like in at first it's like these kind of subtle innuendos, but not really subtle, and it just slowly gets more and more like blatantly sexual and just like obnoxious, until eventually it comes to a head in just a great scene. It's just awesome. It's and so it plays on a lot of these kind of traditional horror tropes, right? So the way this game works is there will be a very long cut scene, oftentimes anywhere from like 5 to 10 minutes. You will get control of a character. You may need to like look around. You can like interact with objects in the environment, and some of them are clues to various subplots of the game that go into like a menu that you can see. But none of them are necessary to continue playing the story of the game, kind of at all. And so you can like look around, and you can spend as much time as you want looking around generally, until you get to a point where you trigger kind of the next cutscene. Eventually, you will have to interact somehow with the game. Like you'll get like you'll get a quick time event that eventually comes up. And depending on how you interact, sometimes it will have a negative consequence for somebody in the game. Sometimes it won't. Sometimes it'll have a consequence that does this thing called the butterfly effect, which is which is honestly probably the worst thing about this game is like it shows you very blatantly when you make a decision that is going to affect a later decision in the game. Like this big butterfly comes on the screen and it's got these animation that happens. Like that to me was very little off-putting, but that's a small complaint, right?
Did the butterfly look like Ashton Kutcher?
Right. It's dumb. It's dumb. Anyway, like until those QuickTime events come up, sometimes you'll have the ability to like look around and look for clues that don't matter, and then other times you're just in cutscenes, like getting story and getting great story, great cheesy horror story, and so you'll interact with the game by doing these QuickTime events. Depending on how you do on them, maybe something will happen in the game, and then you continue the story after that. Apparently, there was like 8, I think, teenagers in this game. They kind of split up because, of course, they do, because that's what happens in horror movies. You can finish the game, from what I understand, with all 8 of them dying. And you can also finish the game with none of them dying.
Nice.
Which is super interesting. So in our current run, 2 of them are dead. I don't know if more will die, but 2 of them have two teenagers have died so far. And it's been really interesting because one of the other things they do is as cheesy as this butterfly effect thing is, and it is, like I don't like it in the way that it is executed. But one of the things that they do that's a little neat about it is that you can open a menu for all of these butterfly effect events, and there's about I would say like 20 of them, maybe 25 of them, and they are all listed, but you can't read them until you've done them, or until you've like started them. Sometimes they have multiple parts to them. But once you do, you can go in and see kind of like what you did that triggered this butterfly effect. And what it will allow you to do is the next time that you play the game, it'll allow you to easily make a different decision if you'd like.
Oh, that's cool.
Because the decisions that are these butterfly effect decisions are always binary. You only get 2 choices in them. So I think that like that part of it is pretty neat, that they let you like see them when you want, because the game is very obviously meant to be played multiple times. Like very obviously meant to be played multiple times. They kind of make it clear that you're not going to see everything in one playthrough, and you shouldn't, because like the whole point of the game is to get this unique story based on how you play the game.
But now I thought you said you and your friend were going to do the whole thing in one night, but you're only a certain amount of time through the story. So how long is the game?
So we played from about 7:15, 7:30 until 1:30 in the morning. We're 9 chapters into the game from what looks like, and I don't know for sure, and I haven't looked this up or anything, what looks like 10 chapters. So we got through almost all of it. We're old now. We can't stay up late anymore, and it got too late and we had to go to bed, and that was the lame reason why we didn't finish the game.
That is an incredibly lame reason. I will give you that.
Yeah, we almost did, though. We almost played through the entire game, and the next time that I play through this game, I will definitely be starting slightly earlier, and I will play through it all in one sitting, because it can totally be played through in one sitting. I was never bored at all with the game, at all. It was super great. And like, if you're not a fan of horror movies, like I can't recommend this to you, because here is probably the best thing as a fan of horror, as a genre, because it is a long game, because it is long compared to a movie, right? I mean, a movie is a movie, and generally horror movies specifically are usually like an hour and a half long. They don't usually go much longer than that, because it's hard to like keep that level of suspense and keep it good for much longer than an hour and a half.
Right.
So you won't find many horror movies that are over an hour and a half long. This game's 6 to 8 hours long. So the way that they keep it interesting is they blow the horror load on this one game because it's the only horror game like this that's ever come out. They literally like hit on every common horror trope at some point in the game that you can possibly think of. Like I'm talking like all the different styles of horror movies, like suspense terror movies, monster movies, you know, you name it, it's like in here as a genre. And so it keeps it incredibly fresh and super fun as a fan of horror movies to play it, because you're always like, oh my God, like they're aping this and this and this. And then you say, oh my gosh, now they're like aping this and this and this movie. So it's been really fun to watch that. And it's just done really well in video game form. They give you just enough interaction with the game to keep you playing the game. Because I think if they didn't give you as many QuickTime events as they do, it would be really easy to just dismiss this game as like too cinematic, because it is incredibly cinematic. Like there are many times where you're just watching a cutscene and then you walk somewhere and then you just watch another cutscene. So I really feel like they give you enough with the QuickTime events that are in the game to keep it interesting.
Now, do you get a warning when there's going to be a QuickTime event? So like, let's say there's like a 15-minute cutscene and I want to put down the controller. Is there going to be some kind of indicator that I need to have it? Because I want to kick back and watch it and I want to be like, waiting the whole time.
This is a horror game. Like you need to be ready at a moment's notice.
It's too much.
What if the killer is behind you?
That's dumb.
No, it's not. I promise it works really well. I'm not just saying that. It really does work very effectively. And it's been a great game. It is also a game that is meant to be watched by other people, without question. I do not doubt in my mind that the creators of this game made this game assuming that you would get friends together and you do a run of this game together. Maybe handing the controller off in some capacity, but totally watching this game as you would a movie with friends. 100%.
It sounds like a video game version of Cabin in the Woods.
It kind of is, except Cabin in the Woods was very like it was self-aware. This game is self-aware too. Cabin in the Woods was it bordered on satirical. This is more homage than it is satire. It is just homage to all the types of horror you can think of.
Sure.
But it's done well. It's not done in like a bad way. I mean, it knows when to use campiness, and it does that. It just does it incredibly well. The people that made this game are obviously big fans of horror, which is great to see. I don't remember what else I was saying, other than the game is meant to be played with other people.
Yeah, there was no doubt in your mind about that.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely no doubt. So the way we were playing it, and it worked out really well, was every chapter we would switch off, because oftentimes the perspective changes within the chapter. You'll control 3 to 4 different teenagers sometimes in one chapter. Other chapters you'll just control one. I mean, it's really good. It's super good. It's good, and it is a must-play game if you are interested in the horror genre. I really feel that way, because it's just done in a way, again, that pays homage to so many of these great horror tropes that exist in so many of these movies that I've enjoyed watching over the many years that I've been watching horror movies. That it's a great game. It's a great game. It's a great game. It really is.
Sounds like it's a decent game.
Yeah. And that was the best game that I played over the course of me playing games in the past like 2 weeks.
I almost wish you would have saved it for a week or two from now, because it's so Halloween-y. Like, this is perfect for Halloween. But this gives people a full 2 weeks or more to play it before Halloween, just in time for the holidays.
Yeah, and I don't like, just because we played it in one sitting doesn't mean I necessarily recommend doing it that way. I just said you can do it that way, and it's absolutely a game you can binge, like, without question. but I don't know if you need to do it that way. In fact, you don't need to do it that way. There's very obvious breaking points. The chapters are each about anywhere from 25 to 45 minutes long, and so that was when we were doing controller handoffs, and those are great parts to put the game down if you want. They even do a last time on Until Dawn every time you start a new chapter.
Oh, I love when games do that.
Yeah, and it's incredibly cinematic. I mean, it's the splash screen of the title of the game, and it even says last time on Until Dawn, and it just shows you what happened during the last chapter of the game based on whatever gameplay decisions you made, as well as quick time events that you like either passed or failed.
Yeah, I love when games do that. So, are there sex scenes?
No.
Then I'm not interested.
Yeah, no, there's well, at least, so here's the thing. I mean, I've only played through the game once. I guess I don't know. There could be.
But you've played in a dumb enough way to where you have not seen simulated sex between computer generated avatars.
So like I said, I probably could, maybe I could have, based on Josh and his girlfriend. I think her name was Jess. Is Jess? Like, I could have, but I hated them both so much when it came time for them to possibly have sex that, like, that is not the direction that I pushed them in.
That is wrong. You chose poorly. I'm glad I was not playing this with you.
So that's the other thing about this game, is that I think we're going to play through it every year because I want to know. It seems like the game could be so different. Like, somebody died in this one scene. I've already said that 2 people have died in my playthrough, so I don't think these is spoilers. Somebody died in one of my scenes, and they were with one other person, and the next chapter had just that other person, like, going through this area of the game. And had that person survived, that person would have been with the character I was controlling in that next chapter for the whole chapter. Like, that would have been a completely, like, different experience had that other person had been there.
Interesting.
So I feel like if the illusion, even if I go through and play the game again and it turns out that it's not that great, like, there's not that much that actually diverges when you choose different choices, the illusion is very good. And I won't know if it was executed well until I play the game again.
That's awesome.
But this first playthrough has just been so much fun. So much fun.
Well, I'm pumped for you and for horror genre fans. I'm not a big enough fan of, like, I mean, Cabin in the Woods, I got it, but Cabin in the Woods, the Joss Whedon movie, for those not familiar, that is a satire basically of horror movie tropes. Like, when I watched Cabin in the Woods, it was fine, but it didn't like really resonate with me. I wasn't like hardcore over it. So I feel like I could probably appreciate Until Dawn, and I might check out some Let's Play scenes, or maybe, like, if you and I are in the same vicinity at some point when you're playing through it, I would watch you play some of it. But, like, I don't think I'd go out of my way. But it sounds like for horror movie fans, it's really a must play.
It totally is. And like I said, it's not really satire. It's definitely homage. And there are there's some scary stuff in there. I would say it's way more jump scare than it is kind of any other type of scare. But like, there have been a couple of games that have come out recently that do non-jump scares well. But games in general just aren't there yet in doing, like, dread is, I think, one of the most commonly used terms for scariness that is not jump scares. And, like, there just aren't a lot of games that do dread well yet. That's, like, still coming.
That makes sense.
Within the medium.
Yeah, I would. That makes sense. That makes sense. Cool. Well done. Look at you playing all those games while I was busy trying to get our podcast working.
That's not what you were doing.
It pretty much is. But hey, you did your due diligence and you did your part by having something to actually talk about. So I'm impressed and pleased.
What I really need to do is I need to play Until Dawn every year. I need to get different people to
Killed.
play.
Oh.
No. I need to get different people to play the game each year because I want to like show this. I want to show this game to other people. This is the type of game I want to show people that don't necessarily play video games. Because
Dude, see, and that's how I feel with my girlfriend all the time. But I don't. She doesn't do horror movies,
yeah, well, I mean, sure, and like
so that's a shame.
right, but this is totally the game that I want to show people that don't play video games because it's such a unique thing and it is so not video gamey, but has enough video game stuff in it to be like fulfilling for me as a video game player.
Right? Yeah. No, I understand. Believe me, there's. I mean, are there games like this that are this well done that aren't horror
The
related?
only, literally the only one that I can think of is Heavy Rain. You could put games like Telltale's The Walking Dead, basically all of the Telltale games. You can put those games, I think, in the same genre, kind of. The difference being that I believe, there aren't any type of QuickTime events at all in the Telltale games. And so they are much closer to your traditional adventure game than this game is. This game is slightly divergent from adventure games in the sense that depending on how you perform in these QuickTime events can impact like who lives and dies in your game rather than just the decisions you make as to like what to say or where
Sure.
to go.
Sure.
So yeah, it's slightly different.
Well, there we are. Look at us.
That's
Look at us reminiscing
all I've
all
got.
those scary times.
Yeah,
All the
that's
scary horror
that's
things.
all I've got on Until Dawn. But it's oh my god, it's so good. It is so good. It really is.
Cool, brah. Cool, brah. Cool story, brah. Cool game, brah.
Oh, and
You
the
wanna
other
take a break?
the other
Go ahead.
No, I don't need to take a break. Actually, I've got my water here, so I'm good.
No, I wasn't asking to take it. No, we don't take breaks. We're
the-
not pedestrian sponsorships after this. But
The
go ahead.
one last thing I'll say about the game is that it is seriously beautiful. The actors were motion captured, and then like their faces were done with facial recognition stuff, and so the actors look like the actors that they play, and so that's great.
Nice.
Yeah. So it looks, and that really helps with the game. Like that really helps the game for sure.
Cool. I'm with you. I'm just processing. Like this is heavy.
Yeah.
Rain, that is. Do you get what I did there? I made a transition seamlessly into talking about Heavy Rain 30 episodes ago.
I will say that it has Peter Stormare in it, and he's fantastic.
I don't know who that is.
Okay.
What's his name? Is Peter Dinklage in it?
No.
Oh, see that? So now I was almost sold, but now I'm not.
I don't have any other games. I did it all.
You played every game. There are no games left to review.
I feel like I did a good job of playing a variety of games.
A well job. You did a well job
to talk about.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, it depends. If you have no games to talk about for the next 4 months, then maybe you should spread it out a little bit. I'm not really sure. However, if you come back next week with things to say, then you will be redeemed, as it were.
It was really good.
Yes. So let's take a short commercial break for our sponsors. Are you ready for that?
Yep.
Well, because I just mentioned I just mentioned Peter Dinklage from Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, yes,
Of
Game
course,
of Thrones.
yes. And I guess what? We're a member of the Gonna Geek Network, and that is a podcast network. And well, it's a network of geeks that do many things, articles, lots of other stuff. But we are one of the podcasts of the Gonna Geek Network. And another one is Tyrion's Landing, which is a Game of Thrones podcast. Do you see what I did there, Jonathan?
Yeah, that was a great segue.
Seamless segue, yes. And in episode 94 is actually the Emmy edition. Tyrion's Landing talks about the mountain of Emmys Game of Thrones received this year. And they also have an update on Hair Watch 2015. So join them on episode 94 of Tyrion's Landing at gonnageek.com. Which I don't know what Hair Watch 2015 is, but I'm sure it's fascinating. And there are other TV shows that are going on the network. They talk about lots of TV shows, such as Crimson Comet. Well, actually, on episode 36, they talk about The Flash Season 2, Episode 1, The Man Who Saved Central City. So on Crimson Comic this week, join us as they escape the 90s and return to The Flash that is beloved currently on the air. This week, the Crimson Comet crew is teased about last season's villains before they get the band together and meet a new Flash. I don't know what that means because I don't watch The Flash, but I've heard Crimson Comet's a super good podcast on the Gonna Geek Network, so you should check that out, especially if you're a fan of The Flash. Now, you don't have time to watch television, I'm guessing.
Like I said, I've made some time to watch some horror films on Netflix this month. I don't watch a ton of TV. I'm like still BoJack Horseman's only 2 seasons, and I'm still not even through that. So no, I don't watch TV quickly.
No, and I know that October, like you just become horror movie central.
Yep.
All you do is sit around on your lazy butt binge watching horror movies. You don't work. You don't eat anything but Doritos for months on end. All October, it's all you do.
Yeah, actually, you're right. You
just lie in your own filth. That's what I remember the last couple of Octobers. I could be wrong, but that's what I remember. So
you could be wrong.
There's that. Well, there's that. All right, cool. Well, I know it's getting kind of late for both of us, and it's been a bit of a longer episode, but quick lifestyle / life update. I will give you a short break before you talk about your house, because I want to talk about a thing.
I want to hear your thing, because I'm kind of tired of talking.
Great. Well, it bridges lifestyle and video games, actually. So last week I was in a couple places for a business trip. I was at our New York office for a couple days, and in Times Square is where that's located. And then I was in Las Vegas for a couple days. I was on the Strip, staying at the Bellagio for a conference, which was, a conference. Networking, yay! Do you like networking, John? Do you and other pharmacists network?
I really like Vegas.
Yeah, but do you network? Is that a thing that you do? Do you go to pharmacy conferences and network?
I think you can. I think we can do that. It's not like a thing I seek out.
You don't go to networking events to expand your network, and so you have more of a network that you can network with and network things and
So I don't know necessarily, I think, what networking means. I know networking opens up new job opportunities, but I don't want a new job though. I really like my job now.
Networking, Jonathan, is obviously using other people as a means to an end, which is inherently unethical, and thus networking is for bad people, basically. But a lot of people do it. So I'm not a big fan of it necessarily. I learned a lot at the conference at keynote speakers and little roundtable sessions and things. But yeah, as far as the networking, quote unquote, whatever. But anyway, I don't want to talk about that too much. Vegas was great. I've been there a few times and it was fun as always. But where's the thing I can click on? However, when I was in New York and I was staying in Times Square, and Times Square is dumb, and everyone in New York, well, okay, let me rephrase that. The first time I went to Times Square, it was awesome because I was in high school and there were more little LED and LCD lights in Times Square than basically most small countries. And that's really cool. Nowadays, I was completely unimpressed. like I was staying at a hotel basically a block away from Times Square, and I would go, and it's just a bunch of TV screens everywhere, and there's like no personality. And it's like if I want several screens, I'll go to work where I have two monitors, or I'll go to a bar where there's like 15 LED TVs just sitting and, you know, hanging off the walls or whatever. Like there's nothing. New York, Times Square just does not do it for me anymore. Like it used to be a cool spectacle that was also like just full of tourists and obnoxious, but now it's just a bunch of it's just noise. It's just noise screaming at you from every direction, and it's all the same. It's just dumb moving pictures of things they want you to buy, and I had nothing. It didn't do it for me. But then I went to the Strip, and the Strip is awesome, and the Strip is still awesome, I think. And this is just me maybe, but because there's neon everywhere and everything is like has this giant scale and a sense of personality, and everything's very like kind of like spread apart, and there's this aesthetic to it where you can look at the giant replica of the Eiffel Tower, but it's not 10 feet away from the giant Statue of Liberty at New York, New York. It's like half a mile away because everything in Vegas is so spread out. So there's my analysis of the aesthetic pros and cons of Times Square and the Las Vegas Strip. I'm sure you were looking forward to that.
I absolutely was looking forward to that.
Good. But the highlight of both trips, actually, and the Bellagio was great, but the highlight of both trips was definitely the Nintendo store in New York well, we'll say in Times Square because that's what they say, but it's not really in Times Square. I don't know it's on Manhattan Island. It doesn't matter. I went to the Nintendo World store.
I know nothing about like New York and the boroughs. So you could say Queens and I'd be like, oh, Queens. Yeah.
Sure. It was in Queens, Brooklyn.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sure.
Right. So there you go. So do you know anything about the Nintendo World store?
I'm assuming that they sell Nintendo goods. I mean, yeah. I've never even heard of it, to be honest.
It's a Nintendo run store, and they have a lot of exclusive events there. Like they have lots of Pokemon tournaments and launch day, huge scale launch day events. And
is it really big?
No,
okay.
Actually, it's not. So you know I mean, it's nothing that you should fly to New York to go to. It's not a gigantic thing. It's just a 2-story store, and there is a lot of exclusive merchandise that you can only get at the Nintendo store, which is really great. I actually got a Metroid shirt with the Samus logo on the front, and it's all really high quality material. And the Nintendo World shirts actually are really, really nice too. And I bought a few things. My favorite thing, speaking of Halloween, was actually a Pikachu plushie that is Pikachu dressed up in a Gengar Halloween costume.
I mean, that sounds cute.
It's really cute. Like, it's really cute. It's the cutest thing basically ever. So I now have a little plushy Pikachu dressed up in a Gengar Halloween costume, and it's probably my favorite Halloween decoration of all time because it's really cute. So I got that, and that's like not a thing you can get anywhere else. So that was really cool. So, I mean, if you really like, I've always wanted a cool Metroid shirt, and you can get them online, but I don't know. You never know about the quality, and usually there's some weird tag or logo that's not Nintendo on it that's like tshirts.com or whatever. And it's not always, I don't know. They're not always nice. This was all like nice, cool merchandise. On the main floor, there's like a kind of a circle of couches where you can kind of sit and just play DS with people and like trade Pokemon or battle or do Street Pass stuff, presumably, and whatever. And they've got a bunch of like just shirts and some plushies, some big ones. And then you go upstairs and there's a bunch of Wii U systems set up, and you can play basically any game that they have right now. Like there was a whole wall with Mario Maker decals, and you can play like Mario Maker at 4 or 5 different Wiis. So it was cool. It was cool. Like I said, if you're a Nintendo fan, it was really nice. And there's like a little kind of museum-y section. It's just a couple glass cases, but they've got like every Nintendo system all the way back to like the original Game & Watch systems. So, just kind of in a case. So it's really well done. they really make the most of the space. If you're a Nintendo fan in New York City, like, you absolutely need to go here because it's just really cool. If I had had the forethought to have brought my Nintendo 3DS, I would have gotten some really cool street passes there that are presumably unique to the Nintendo World store in New York. So it was just really cool. There's just a lot of merchandise there. It would have been great if I could have made it to an actual event there, but whatever. I was there on a Tuesday, I think, and I got there an hour before they closed. But if I had gotten, like, I was on a business trip, so I was by myself basically. If I could have gone right after work and gotten there at 6, I may have literally just sat there playing Wii U for like an hour, because, like, how it is traveling. Like, I mean, there's nothing to do in a hotel at all.
Yeah,
and
it's not like you were in a city where there was like a lot to do.
I mean, New York City is.
I've never been there. I can tell you right now, it would not be for me. It would be way too busy for me.
Yeah. I mean, you think, good Lord, it's. Part of me really wishes that I could live there briefly just to experience it, because it's insane. It's next level, right? It's just totally next level, because, like, Chicago is. And my girlfriend has made this observation to me several times, because she's been to lots of major cities and pays attention to architecture and things. Chicago is a city, but it's very spread out. It's very spacious. Like, if you're driving down the road, there are like 2 wide lanes and there's a sidewalk and things like that. And yeah, there's a lot of buildings, but there's alleys where you throw the trash, and there's alleys where trucks can drive through. And in New York City, or at least on Manhattan, which is where you'll go if you ever go for business, on Manhattan Island, everything is on top of each other. And, like, they just throw the trash in piles on the curb in front of the buildings. So there's just like huge piles of trash everywhere. There's the smell of garbage and sewage, like, steaming up from under the streets everywhere. It's just different. And granted, I've only been to really Manhattan. I'd love to see Brooklyn or Queens or some other part of it that's more, I guess, normal. But when you get to, like, the core hustle and bustle of New York, it's nothing like Michigan Avenue. Like, Michigan Avenue in Chicago, I work on Michigan Avenue at Tribune Tower, and I go in and it's whatever. There's space. It's just a different world. It's very strange. And I do think you would probably hate it in terms of, like, being in the middle of everything. It's just like, it's just, everything is, it's crazy. But at the same time, I'm kind of intrigued, and I'm kind of like, I wonder what it would be like to actually spend a decent amount of time here. So I don't know. New York is like a mystery to me that I will probably never solve. That got way too deep and insightful, introspective. I am done.
That's what we do here on Unqualified Gamers, though.
Is that what we do here on Unqualified Gamers?
Yeah, sometimes.
All right. Well, now you know more about me and my complicated thoughts about New York City, about which I know virtually nothing. And again, I know Manhattan is not representative of the entire city in any way, but I happen to be there. And dude, New Yorkers hate Times Square. Like, I was talking to the people in our New York office and some other people that just live there, and they were like, Times Square is the worst place in the world.
Is it because all the tourists go there?
Probably, but I don't know. Like I said, I work at Tribune Tower on Michigan Avenue, and that's like the tourist spot in Chicago. And I don't know. A lot of people in Chicago live in Wrigleyville. No one ever complains about the tourists that go to the Cubs games. It's like, I don't know. I've been around a lot of touristy places, and I live in a major U.S. city, but, like, not like this, man. No one hates on anything like this. It was crazy, but whatever. So what'd you play this weekend?
So the other thing that we did was the house stuff, the crazy house stuff. So you know how I bought that house? Remember how I bought that house? Talked about that the last time that we recorded.
Moving in on Halloween.
Yeah, that sure was the plan, wasn't it? So I'm gonna be homeless now for about a month.
What?
So we bought a house. And everything was like hunky dory. We had sold our house, and, like, we had lined up the closing date so that we were going to be moving out of our house on the exact same day we were going to be moving into this other house. because that's like what you do. That's ideally how you do it when you're selling your house and moving into a new one, from what we understand. Um, so all that was fine. We hadn't got our inspection back yet, but like um, in general, like inspections go in a way where even if something is wrong, like you can usually figure out what you're going to do to like fix the problem when there's an inspection. So our inspection came back, and it turned out that the house that we were buying had needed all new siding on the entire house
Why?
because it was completely rotten because of moisture. So that particular fix uh, is about like 15,000 out of pocket dollars.
Oh,
And when you're buying a house the house is very expensive, but it's folded into this 30-year loan. So like it may be, the house is probably the most expensive thing you'll ever buy, but you're paying for it for such a long time that like obviously you're making monthly payments, and it doesn't feel that expensive when you break it down to a monthly payment, right? But this would be us paying this would have been like us paying a really large amount of money up front with the down payment, as well as the earnest money that we have to put into the house. And then also getting into the house and paying $15,000. And it basically would have depleted our savings in a way that we just weren't comfortable. Like if anything had happened to our jobs at that point, we wouldn't have been able to live for like any amount of time, which is like, you can't, when you have a kid, you can't operate like that. We could have operated like that if we didn't have Max, but like we have to be able to provide for him. So, yeah, it's much more important for us now to keep a level in our savings to where if anything did happen, we do need to be able to like exist for a couple of months. So we were like, okay, well, since this is like the fix that needs to happen, we decided, I think we're just gonna like walk. I think we're gonna walk away. Is kind of what we decided, which was a very hard decision to come to. It was a very agonizing couple of days to like figure that out.
oh, dude, you
So
liked that house a lot.
we talked to our realtor, and we said,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, man.
Well, I'm not done with the story yet, though. So we talked to our realtor, and we were like, okay, here's like the deal. Like we talked about this, and this isn't a cost that we are going to be able to take on when we just like buy our new house. Like we can't do it. So we're gonna walk away. And she understood. I mean, she like was all for it and everything. And she's like, okay, I'll tell them that that the like I'll tell them that the only way that you would continue this deal is if they paid for the siding. And she said, they're not going to do that. So, so I'll get you these things to sign that show that yes, you're going to be walking away from the house, and then just sign it, and I'll give it to him tomorrow when I talk to him. But I'll let him know that they would need to replace the siding for you to stay with the house. So she told them that, and we just kind of went about our business. And they haven't been as responsive as like other buyers and sellers have been. Like we made decisions like same day when somebody requested something from us in our house selling process. It's been taking these sellers like 2 days to get back to us for basically anything that we say. So we weren't expecting a response immediately. So the next day, Casey and I were like, well, we need to like start looking at houses again. So the next day, another house goes up for sale on that exact same block. And this block is like 20 houses long. And so the odds of another house going up on that block are like ridiculous. So another house went up on that block, and we were like, oh, We have to go see this. So I went after work. This is like a Thursday. I went after work to go see this house at like 5:30, and the realtor and I walked through it, and I was like, I also really like this house, like a lot. And she was like, yeah, I like it too. And it's basically like the same as the other house, except it's a little smaller and the yard is smaller. That was basically all the difference was. It was set up in a very similar way. Um, and I was like, well, let's get Casey in here to see it. So the next day, during the day, she went in on that Friday afternoon and went into the house. And she's like, I want to put an offer on this house. So we put an offer on the second house. Meanwhile, the first house hasn't been officially canceled yet because we've filled out the paperwork, but it hasn't been given to those sellers to sign because everything has to be signed by both parties once you have an accepted offer. So we put an offer on this house, and we find out that there's already been, and keep in mind, this is the second day it's been on the market. In the middle of the day, there has already been another offer put on the house.
Of course there was.
This house was significantly less expensive than the first house by a relatively large amount. And we found out the reason for that a little later. So we put the offer on the house, and there's already another offer. We are told that the other offer that's on the house is low. Like they requested lower than the seller asked for the
Trying to
house.
negotiate. Yeah.
Right. And they were looking for the seller to pay closing costs, apparently. And we went in basically offering their asking price. Like so our offer was already more competitive than the offer that was in there. We find out that there is another second showing for another couple later that day. And a couple hours later, we're told that there's going to be a third offer placed on the house, which is a really bad situation to be in. Like, you don't want that. You never want multiple offers when you're buying a house. You really don't want 3 offers when you're buying a house. So the way that it works then is we get told, okay, here's how this will work now. There's a deadline tomorrow of 4 p.m. You need to give us your highest, best offer that you are willing to pay for this house. And then all 3 people will give their highest, best offer, and then the seller will decide which one they want to go with. So meanwhile, we still haven't heard back on the first house. So the next day rolls around, and we decide, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to offer them basically so that they make like $15,000, that they make in their pocket $15,000 more than their asking price. For them, it's like a fantastic deal.
Hell yeah.
And so that's all great. And we submit that offer, and then we wait. Meanwhile, we get a call from our realtor about the first house. She talked to their realtor, and apparently they decided that they were willing to replace the siding on the house if we decrease the amount of closing costs that we requested from them by $5,000, which translates to, if you've never bought a house before, or if you have and don't understand it because it's incredibly stupidly complicated. Basically, what that boils down to is, for $5,000 out of our pocket, we can get an entirely new set of siding on the house, which is an incredible deal. Like, it is ridiculous. We weren't expecting anything close to that. So we were like, okay, well, that kind of changes things regarding this first house. So we talk about it a little bit. And we end up deciding that we're going to wait for the offer to come back.
Wait to see what happens on the second one.
On the second house, see what they say, and depending on what they do, it'll either make our decision easy or hard. So later that evening, we are told that we did not get the bid for the second house, and that the winning bid blew ours out of the water, quote unquote, from our realtor, which means I have no idea what ended up being offered for that house. I'm super curious because our offer was very good, very, very good compared to what they were asking for that house.
Yeah, right. It was 15 more, so they must have offered like 25 to 30 more.
And it wasn't just 15 more. It was actually more than 15 more. We still had the seller pay the closing costs because it ended up that puts more. I don't want to try to explain it because it's very complicated as to the way that it works, and it's unnecessary for me to explain it. But we actually had it set up so that we offered like 20 some $1,000 more than their asking price. So the offer was like very, very good, and the one that beat it blew ours out of the water. So that's super interesting. That was very, very interesting. And so we said, okay, we're gonna go with the first house. Like, we got it figured out. Problem is that because of some new lending laws that literally went into effect at the start of October, when all this was happening, you can't do something called escrow anymore. So escrow is a concept where like the seller of the house can put money in this account and they can then move out of the house, and money from that account can be used to pay any contractors that need to do work to the house. And then the remaining money in that account is given back to the seller. It's a deal that you can make when you're selling a house, or you could make when you were selling a house, so that you could get out of the house, new people could get in, and you could still pay for the things that you were like required to pay for by the contract. So you can't escrow money anymore. So now all of the work to the house has to be done before the people move out of it. So we have to wait for the siding to be done on the house for the house to be done and for us to be able to move in. And right now, that is scheduled for December 4th to have the siding done. And then we will then be able to close on the house December 11th, which is roughly a month and a half later than originally intended.
Dude.
And the following Wednesday, this all happened like over the course of 4 or 5 days. The following Wednesday, we got the results back for our radon test. I don't know if you're familiar at all with radon, but radon is a gas that basically appears in basements. It's very common in Minnesota. It's caused from the breakdown of like uranium and something else. And it is a cancerous gas if you're exposed to it long term. It's a relatively like recently discovered thing. Like it hasn't been like a known issue for a long period of time in the grand scheme of like knowing about harmful stuff. But we also had a radon test done for this house. And of course, with everything else going on, we get the test results back on Wednesday. And yes, the house has a significant amount of radon above safe levels. So you have to get a radon remediation as well. Now, typically, this, like when you do this test, the sellers will just pay for it. They'll just pay for this test, for the remediation, I mean. But because they're already paying for so much of the siding, we were concerned that we wouldn't be able to work with them on the radon now because they're already putting so much of their own money in for the siding. Radon remediation is like $1,500 to $2,500. So our realtor talks to the realtor, and the next day comes back to us and says, okay, they're willing to do radon remediation if you lower your closing costs by another $500. So now we're getting another large fix to the house for $500 out of our pocket compared to the $1,500 to $2,500 that it would normally cost us. So it feels like by kind of being patient with it, that we're going to end out coming out really awesome with this house. Because we're going to have the radon thing done and we're going to have completely new siding on the house.
That sounds great. Rockstar.
Yeah. So that like
on Chicago.
It was like one of the most stressful like 7 days trying to get that all established and like all of the papers and stuff signed that we got signed that I've had in a very long time.
Yeah. Sounds like it.
And now it's stressful because we were told like, okay, if there's any openings at all with this with a siding company, like your siding could get done sooner. And as soon as it's done, like you can get into the house. So now it's stressful because it's just like any day we could get the call that's like, hey, there's been an opening and you're going to be able to get your siding on like this weekend. And then you're going to need to be ready to close the following week. So that's stressful too.
Happy birthday.
It's not my birthday.
It's not your birthday. Your birthday's in May.
It's not my birthday.
But,
Yeah, so
that's
that's my house debacle. It's been crazy.
Well, happy adventures. At least you will have a home at some point. And I cannot wait to see what your internet is like in that interim month when you're homeless, because I'm sure that everything will work perfectly from a technology perspective and we'll be able to record with no problems, because when would we ever have problems?
So I'm gonna be at my mother-in-law's house, and she has the Wi-Fi.
Okay, I've heard of that.
I think that she has an internet connection that I've tested that gives me about 1 megabyte download speeds.
How many bits is that?
It's not many. Now I've actually recorded a podcast from her house before when we had mold, I believe, in our house that I'm currently living in. I believe that we recorded a podcast over there. So I know it is possible. I don't remember the quality. There's a very good chance it's going to be on my laptop, for which I apologize ahead of time because the quality on that laptop sucks, but it is what it is. But I think we should still be able to do it.
Cool. Well, you can be on the edge of, John, you were just on the edge of your seat for a week. Listener, you can be on the edge of your seat for the month of October and the remainder of October and November, as you never really know what's going to come up next from our podcast.
Yeah, not to mention we might have some exciting news. We think it's exciting news in the near future as well.
Who, you and me?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess.
Yeah. So we might have some interesting stuff to share as well.
I mean, I guess. Really? I don't like to announce that we have announcements coming up because they don't always come to fruition. But yeah,
that's why I said might.
That's true. Well, keep an eye on unqualifiedgamers.com and please subscribe to us on iTunes and leave a review if you get a chance, because that'd be really great. Would love to get some of your feedback. If you want to be on this podcast, email me at unqualifiedpodcast.com. Unqualified. No, that's not right. Unqualifiedpodcast@gmail.com. Unqualifiedpodcast@gmail.com. You can find all our contact info on unqualifiedgamers.com. In the event that John's not available, lads, I mean, I'm kind of become the interview machine, is what they call me at the station now.
Nobody calls you that.
Everyone calls me that. So there are interviews to be had. So indie developers, indie game collectors, whatever. If you're listening, you got something to talk about games. I'm unqualified. So even if you're not qualified, then it's appropriate to have you on. Just talk to us if you want to talk to us on the podcast. And things happen.
Things happen. That
wasn't meant to sound like a desperate plea for guests. I really don't. I mean, we've got our own whatever. I'm just saying. I know some people sometimes have perspectives of things they want to. They have thoughts in their brains, and then we have a podcast. So it's like, why not combine the two? And I'm just giving you opportunities to flourish. All right, just drop the attitude.
Good.
That's what I said.
I'm flourishing.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means either. I have no idea what you're saying. It's great. It's wonderful.
I'm going to go play video games. No, I'm not. I'm not, because I have plans for the next week. Again, I'm never going to play a video game again for the rest of my life.
Good. That'll be really good for our video game podcast.
Agreed.
What do you do here?